Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
President Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, giving ABC's Martha Raddatz what she deserved right there. You know, honestly, who ignores the video ABC did that shows Venezuelan gangs literally taking over an apartment building, part of an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, which is not a border town. This happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm convinced most of the people at ABC haven't seen the video. They certainly didn't air it. And Martha Raddatz did her best to try and sell the left's false narrative that what you're watching right now on the screen is nothing but a conspiracy theory. Now, too bad the company that rents out these apartments, manages this apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. They're called CBZ Management, and they posted a thread on X, a fairly lengthy thread, setting the record straight, writing, among other things, everything was progressing smoothly, property values were rising, and vacancy rates were dropping. It was a win-win for both the owners and the city of Aurora. Then the gangs arrived, they wrote. Despite clear evidence, many still deny the reality of the situation, sometimes using us as scapegoats. This is the management company speaking now. That's why we are no longer staying silent. We will continue to counter falsehoods with simple facts and evidence. Yes, gangs did take control of our apartment complexes, plural complexes, not just buildings, in Aurora, Colorado, and the government did nothing. That is the real story. Now, that's the management company putting that out, Foldy, and they went on from there, and they gave a lot of information, and it was pretty well done. They were tired of the stuff. So they came up. But Martha Raddatz, oh, well, I'm going to straighten you out. She jumped in and cut off J.D. Vance, right? And I'm going to straighten you out. And instead what she did was disseminated misinformation and disinformation, which Hillary Clinton thinks she might have to face criminal charges for disseminating.
This is exactly what we were just talking about in the first segment. Is there any doubt that Martha Raddatz is going to vote for Kamala Harris? Of course not. I mean, this is insane. And I have a slight solution here, is that they should fly all of these Venezuelan gang members from Aurora and just set them loose in the ABC News building, which is probably half vacant anyway, everyone working from home there anyway. And then we can say on this outlet, well, you know, it's just a handful of incidents in a building of a news outlet people aren't really watching anymore, and we don't really see much of a problem here with that. But this is exactly the point, is what is the benefit for Kamala Harris to go on ABC News, where if she were maybe asked about this, she would fail? What is the benefit for J.D. Vance going, I mean, he's dunking on Martha Raddatz, who's certainly not going to vote for him anymore after doing this interview. But that's why I think the Democrats were smart to play it safe. And I think they opened up Kamala Harris to a lot of risk, having her answer basic questions like, what did you eat for breakfast? She wasn't able to answer these questions. And now I think for the final 22 or whatever days, we're going to see a lot less of her. And I think that's going to be on purpose.
Just a handful of buildings in the Gaza were hit in Israeli airstrikes. Really not a big deal, just a handful. While ABC News was doing its part, pumping out the Democrat Party's propaganda and misinformation, CBS News allowed Alejandro Mayorkas, our DHS secretary, to spread more disinformation and more lies. Thanks, Alejandro.
The notion that we in law enforcement have sought to intentionally allow individuals to cross the border illegally for the purpose of voting is preposterous, and everyone should condemn that rhetoric.
Well, Hilton, what was his trick there? What was his semantic trick there? What did he add?
And he added the little voting part at the very end. But
and law enforcement. It's not law enforcement allowing it. It's the administration allowing it.
I mean, can he go and say that to Lake and Riley's mom and Rachel Morin's family and Jocelyn Nungri? I mean, it's really sad that he even goes out there and denies that they're not letting illegal aliens in. But just fairly quickly, going back to Colorado, I think the person who really is at fault in Aurora is the mayor of Aurora. He has flip-flopped more on the story of those complexes more than Kamala has in her career. He has gone back and forth about whether illegals took over it and that they did, they didn't, and then that it's Biden and Harris's fault, and now it's not Biden and Harris's fault. He is putting politics over the people of Aurora and denying that this happened, and it's just very sick that he even leads that city.
And it's not very ambiguous if you look at the court filings, right? Because CBZ defaulted on its loans to U.S. Bank. They're who put up the collateral. U.S. Bank hired Perkins Coie, the same law firm that did the Russiagate Steele dossier. So no, by no means a conservative outlet. Perkins Coie found that the Tren de Aragua gang has been taking 50% of the rent that's due to the bank. And also, they're operating prostitution rings out of these buildings. This is in legal findings from Perkins Coie. So it's not ambiguous. When Martha Raddatz is saying it's up for debate, it's not.
Chris, remember after the 2016 election how all of these folks in the New York and LA media markets said that they needed to get in touch with the Americans who voted for Donald Trump? They've resorted back to their elite bubbles where they have no idea what's going on in the rest of the country. And it's the exact same network, ABC News, where David Muir and Lindsay Davis sat there and fact-checked Donald Trump all night without ever correcting Kamala Harris.
These outlets too big to want to get in touch with the Venezuelan gangbangers running the apartment complexes in Aurora. That's very disrespectful of them.
Well, also, look, Chicago is so overrun by, we call it TDA now, Tren de Aragua. We've got an abbreviation for it because they're everywhere, and we don't want to have to learn Spanish just to track the gangs that the Democrats have waved into the country. But so many of them in Chicago that they're reporting all over Chicago. They're waiting for the Chicago gangs to stand up and go after the Venezuelan gangs and have this, like gangs of New York, Hollywood gang action. Also, another story out of New York today about Venezuelan gangs staying in shelters who are robbing people at gunpoint in Times Square and beyond. They're sacking Denver and Indianapolis, just the Venezuelan gangs.
Martha Raddatz would say that isn't happening.
She doesn't follow the news. I mean, I used to know her. We reported at the Pentagon at the same time together. Now she's an ABC anchor and all that implies. Coming up.